Hey everyone, and welcome to Skillcapped. With the massive changes to jungle in patch 11.10, players are left confused on what champions are the strongest and which ones are better left untouched. Well, fret not, as our challenger experts got you covered. In this guide, we'll be going over the top 9 strongest champions after the jungle rework so that you can get that sweet delicious LP and climb up the ranks. Now, champions on this tier list will actually be organized into 3 difficulty levels: easy, intermediate, and advanced. This way, regardless of what kind of player you are, this tier list will have something for you. Alright, and jumping into our question of the day, are you planning on switching your champions around based on the meta, or do you tend to stick with a champion over a longer period of time? Personally, I started off playing a handful of champions, but over the years I basically only play meta now since my start of being involved with competitive 4 years ago. However, it's always interesting to see people push the limits of one champion despite its strength on the current patch, so we're just really curious how everyone feels about this. Let us know in the comments section below. Alright, let's jump right into the strongest junglers after the rework. Starting us off with the lowest difficulty champions on our list, we have none other than Rek'Sai. Rek'Sai is a champion who has always preferred to get her lanes ahead, which in the new jungle is one of the most important qualities to have. This is due to the fact that jungle camps now respawn 15 seconds later, so farming junglers are now less powerful as they accumulate less gold and experience over time. And Rek'Sai shines in a more aggressive gank-heavy meta. She's one of the strongest at actually forcing ganks, since you can come from all sorts of crazy angles using her tunnels. And having additional downtime on the map through an increased respawn timer on camps isn't necessarily a bad thing for Rek'Sai, since you can just set up your tunnel network. Now do keep in mind, even though camps will be respawning 15 seconds later, this won't impact your first initial clear. And this is what's so strong about Rek'Sai right now. For her opening route, she can actually full clear by the 3-minute and 15-second mark, which is when the scuttles spawn. This leaves her extremely versatile for early pathing, since she can choose to power farm for a level 4 spike and go for scuttle control, or opt into a more aggressive path for earlier ganks. This is also a good time to mention how, in order to achieve this 3-minute and 15-second full clear, you'll actually need to take the rune Absolute Focus, which gives you more damage if you're above 70% max health. Now remember, when Riot reworked the jungle, they made camps do less damage, and so a lot of junglers are now taking Absolute Focus. You'll get much faster clears since you can consistently maintain above 70% health now. Here's what's really crazy about Rek'Sai on this patch though, is when you take the average win rate of the top 50 players on each champion, Rek'Sai has the highest average win rate of any champion at 60.66%. What this means is, despite being an easy champion to pick up and learn, she also has the highest win rate once you've actually mastered her. If this wasn't convincing enough, she has an insanely low pick rate of 3.38% and a ban rate of 2.01%, showing that the rest of the player base really hasn't caught on, making her pretty sleeper OP on the new patch. In terms of her runes, it's actually quite simple. You either go Hail of Blades if you're facing 3 or more ranged squishies, or switch to Conqueror if you're facing more tanky or bruiser type champions. For items, you want to rush Prowler's Claw for the increased damage and much needed mobility to stick to targets, then opt into more bruiser items with a balance of survivability and damage like Edge of Night and Sterak's and GA. Overall, Rek'Sai is relatively easy to pick up, being rather straightforward except for her Tremor Sense, which will take you a couple of games to get used to. I always recommend Rek'Sai for new junglers to learn how to gank and pressure the map, and she'll continue doing a great job going forward. This is a great pickup if you're looking for an aggressive jungler on the patch that doesn't require you to have crazy mechanics. Yes, I'm looking at you, Lee Sin. Moving on to our second pick for OP champions in the easy category is one of the newer faces, Morgana Jungle. She was probably the strongest jungler prior to the rework and is a top contender on this patch. A ranged jungler with red buff will always be insanely good in the early game, since it allows you to not only slow and chase down laners, but also gives you an easy source of damage while letting you kite back any melee junglers you end up getting into 1v1s with. However, with that being said, her main strength is her insane clear speed, and yes, that's not as valuable as it used to be due to the respawn timers, but keep in mind, that's more of a nerf to power farming junglers with weaker ganks. Think of someone like Karthus. Sure, Karthus can clear fast, but his ganks are quite weak as he only has his level 1 wall to apply a slow. Morgana, on the other hand, has amazing ganks due to her bind. Simply walk in on an enemy, auto attack to apply the red buff slow, and start getting closer while cutting off angles to land one of your binds. Which, by the way, her bind applies a 2-second root at level 1. This is what makes Morgana so great with the new changes. An insanely fast clear speed means she'll have a ton of downtime to look for ganks after full clearing, and with how strong her bind is, her ganks will have a high success rate. That's not even to mention how much better her ganks get once she unlocks her ultimate. And if all of this wasn't enough, she actually has fantastic scaling, as her ultimate with Zhonya's combo will always have potential to completely turn around teamfights, not to mention landing a bind can set up game-changing picks. Even if you're having a bad game where your teammates are the ones carrying, you can then just opt into kiting for your carries with Black Shield and crowd control. She's very versatile. For your runes, the most standard page will be to run Dark Harvest with Inspiration as your secondary. You can definitely consider running Absolute Focus for the increased clear speed, but top Koreans tend to prefer getting free boots since rushing Lost Chapter is expensive and the 300 gold can delay that spike by a long time. For your build, there will always be the same 3 core items, going Liandry's, Sorc Shoes, and Zhonya's. From there, it's situational, picking up whatever item is best against the enemy team composition. Demonic Embrace can be great for more tankiness and sustained damage. Banshees is great when facing AP compositions with crowd control, and you can even run Deathcap if you're ahead and facing mainly squishy champions. And finally, for our last OP champion in the easy category, we have Xin Zhao. He's actually very similar to Rek'Sai in that you clear decently well, have strong ganking and skirmishing, and so many of the same things that we went over in the Rek'Sai sections will apply to Xin Zhao as well. However, one of the unique things he really benefits from on this patch is the fact that he won't fall behind anymore to those power farming junglers. You know, the ones that were full clearing by the 3:15 timing when the scuttle spawns and hitting level 4. This used to be a big issue, and to be honest, prior to this patch, the jungle meta was basically defined by this one opening round: full clear your jungle by 3:15 or get crushed by someone who can. That isn't the case anymore though, and you have more aggressive pathing options. For example, an opening path you could do would be red, blue into Gromp for a fast level 3, then gank the nearby side lane into then reverse clearing back to the opposite side crab. The reason why this is now possible is due to both the spawn timers being 15 seconds longer on camps, but also the fact that they've added comeback experience. On the last patch, if you tried an aggressive route like this, the enemy jungler would just power farm his way to a massive level lead and then use that to start invading your jungle. However, now they can't get as big of a level lead with the increased spawn timers, and any kind of level lead they do end up creating will end up being significantly reduced by comeback experience. In terms of builds, Xin Zhao actually has 4 to 5 different ones and can be very versatile because of this. Just recently, we released a guide where we talked with the best Xin Zhao to understand all of them. Check out our full Xin Zhao guide for an in-depth explanation of runes and builds. However, if you want to just jump into a game and play, then the Immortal Shield Bow Conqueror build is what we recommend. It gives you insanely strong 1v1 and dueling potential, while also giving the best scaling when it comes to damage. Now, before we head into our strongest picks, for intermediate difficulty, the best way to keep up with the new jungle meta and crush opponents is with our hyper improvement system at skillcap.com. We have professional courses by the top players, brand new Smurf commentaries each week, where a challenger player walks you through how to climb out of every rank from Iron to Diamond. Elite coaching from trained experts, and we upload tons of new exclusive guides you can only find on our website every single week. In fact, we are so confident you'll improve using our system that if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using Skillcapped, you can claim a full refund, so there's absolutely no risk. So what are you waiting for? Check out skillcap.com and get the rank you've always wanted, link in the description below. Alright, so starting us off on our intermediate junglers, we have Kha'Zix. Kha'Zix is another champion that struggled to keep up with fast full clears on the previous patch, which is exactly why he loves the jungle rework. Not only will he have more time to look for fights to snowball with the increased camp respawn timers, he can also take advantage of isolation by camping brushes during this time, and he absolutely loves the crab changes. Taking Scuttle Crab was extremely slow to kill for Kha'Zix since he lacked crowd control to break the shield it has, but that's no longer the case with Smite now breaking the Scuttle shield. Now, the reason why he's in the intermediate category is that he really requires good intuition when it comes to fight selection, as you're a squishy melee assassin who has to position well or you'll just get blown up. His combos can also be difficult to execute as he really needs to space correctly to get everything off, and a single cancelled auto or missed input can make you miss a kill. Pro tip though, if you're new to Kha'Zix, just take attack speed instead of adaptive damage in your rune page. It makes comboing so much easier since your auto goes off faster and you will cancel your auto attacks way less. You can then swap back to adaptive damage once you get better with him. Also, if playing Kha'Zix wasn't hard enough by itself, you have the new Ignite jungle Kha'Zix making waves in high elo. I mean, just check out the 600 LP Kha'Zix main racking up the free low on this patch. The main idea behind the Ignite build is that you give yourself insane snowball potential since you can basically beat every jungler 1v1 from level 3 onwards. With that being said, we definitely recommend the more standard Flash and Smite for now. For runes, you can run this Electrocute page for increased damage. In terms of builds, Kha'Zix has 2 main options, either going Eclipse or Prowler's Claw. We definitely recommend the Eclipse build as it's much easier to use and more versatile into a variety of team compositions. Our next intermediate jungler is my personal favorite on the patch, Kindred. Similar to Kha'Zix, you really couldn't keep pace with the 315 clearers previously. Now, that's a non-issue due to the reasons mentioned in the previous section. The smite changes on Crab also benefit her heavily, as before it could take upwards of 15 seconds to kill Scuttle, and that gets reduced to about 5 seconds now with the smite removing the Scuttle shield. Additionally, with smite now doing flat damage regardless of your level, execution damage has become more important than ever in securing objectives over the enemy jungler. And luckily, Kindred's E is an execute and perfect for this scenario. Another thing that not a lot of players have caught on to yet is the fact that diving laners is way more viable. This is due to camps having slower respawn timers, giving you the extra time needed to execute a proper tower dive. And Kindred is amazing at diving champions by abusing her ranged red buff to apply damage, de-aggro the tower, and then go back in. Overall, slower respawn timers on camps means much more time to force ganks, which also means more marks for Kindred and better 1v9 potential. Kindred scales extremely well, and in a very unique way, where she can scale based on her marks collected. This means you don't need some absurd level lead from power farming or counter jungling. With slower respawn timers and comeback experience on camps, going even in levels with an enemy jungler often means you're actually ahead due to the scaling of your marks. If there's one thing that really makes Kindred unique compared to other champions on this list, is that she's extremely strong in the early game, while also having some of the best late game carry potential, which makes her a fantastic choice for solo queue. Keep in mind though, we did list her as intermediate difficulty, and that's because the more AD carry playstyle she has tends to scale with player skill. Positioning is super critical, and if you aren't good at it, well, Kindred will feel really weak. Considering that AD carry positioning isn't exactly a skill a lot of junglers will have, it does make Kindred have a steeper learning curve than most. For Kindred, she actually has a lot of viable rune pages, including things like Press the Attack or running Inspiration Second, but Conqueror is the most consistent and standard choice, giving you a nice balance of early game damage and scaling. For your build, you really can't go wrong with the Kraken Slayer into Blade of the Ruined King. Boots are situational based on what you need. You then get Rune-Ins or Phantom Dancer depending on whether you want more AoE damage or single target. And then you round it out with the Infinity Edge. Feel free to then either grab a QSS or Last Whisper for your final item based on what you need in the game. And jumping into our final champion for the intermediate tier, and is probably the champion that everyone expected to pop up at some point in this list, it's none other than Elise. She's quite literally the poster child for aggressive ganks and dives, and considering that the patch was meant to directly buff those two things, well, it's obvious why Elise is on this list. She's also probably the main beneficiary of catch-up XP, as her very common 3-camp route leaves her prone to falling behind other farming junglers in levels. In our patch video, we talked about how jungle has shifted away from individual carries towards more team support, and Elise is one of the best for this. One small adjustment that may catch new Elise players off guard is that Press the Attack is the rune of choice now. Being able to run Legend Alacrity helps a lot with your clear speed. Coup de Grace is also an amazing rune for Elise considering you have execute damage, and PTA itself will just give you more damage overall than something like Electrocute. For your build, your core will always be rushing Night Harvester and Sorc Shoes. After this, a lot of players recently have been rushing Lichbane, but I think this is a mistake and will fall out of favor. It delays your core items of Zhonya's and Void Staff for far too long. Additionally, if you're snowballing early and are dead set on going for more damage, just get a Mage Eyes. It will give you more than enough damage when stacked. Rushing a faster Zhonya's will just be the more consistent option and give you way more survivability and outplay potential when combined with your Repel ability. Additionally, Void Staff is extremely important for boosting your damage on Elise, as she has terrible AP scaling, and so the most effective way to do more damage is to lower the enemy's magic resistance, not increase your ability power. Your typical final items will be Morello to apply Grievous Wounds in teamfights, and Banshee's Veil for more survivability. Now, I'm sure some players may think it's a bit controversial to label Elise as intermediate difficulty, however, it's not because the champion is particularly difficult, rather that you really need to know when to use abilities and switch forms. This can be difficult for players since this playstyle is very calculated and you can't just farm and be useful like other champions on this list. You need to be really consistent with your execution and mechanics in order for your ganks to work and have a better understanding of how laning works in order to effectively snowball your teammates with your ganks. Alright, and finally, we now have the advanced category containing the most difficult champions that are OP after the jungle rework. And leading the pack is none other than Rumble Jungle, which is actually insanely strong right now. He separates himself from other junglers due to his great teamfighting and AoE damage, and that's something that not a lot of other junglers have. However, this difficulty comes at the cost of being very difficult to play. Heat management is very hard and unique to Rumble, so in order to optimize your clears and fight well, you need to know when and what abilities will cause you to overheat. Bad Rumble clears are easily 30 seconds behind good ones, so you'll have to put in quite a bit of time to perfect it. However, it's well worth it if you do, as you'll be burning through camps at insane speeds. Another unique strength to Rumble is that if you do happen to get autofilled, Rumble can literally be played in all 5 roles. Although it's a bit unconventional for support and AD carry, he has seen play in pro scrims in every single one of them. This makes him a strong candidate for one-tricks. Keep in mind though, he is a flavor of the month pick, and so those that are looking for a challenge and a champion with a high skill expression, this can be a great option. Just keep in mind that it could become a bad investment if Riot decides that he shouldn't be a jungler, but he does have one of the highest payouts once mastered. Challenger junglers are pick banning this champ, and it sees almost 100% presence in high levels of play. To give you some better context of just how absurd his power levels are, he has one of the lowest win rates when it comes to the average player base at 46.43%. However, the average win rate for the top 50 Rumble players in the world is the 5th highest of all junglers at 59.16%. That's a 13% win rate disparity between the average player and the Rumble Jungle Master, one of the highest gaps of any champion and why he's in our advanced difficulty category. Moving on to runes, you'll want to run Dark Harvest with a pretty unique setup meant to get as much cooldown reduction in your runes as possible. This is mostly for your extremely important ult cooldown. For your build, prioritize getting Sorc shoes into Rocket Belt. Rumble loves magic penetration to take advantage of his high base damages, so you'll build these 2 items into Zhonya's and then Void Staff. Round out the build at that point with Death Cap or even things like Banshees and Demonic Embrace based on what you need. Our next champion on this list is the solo queue terror, Shaco. Shaco actually had a big problem on the previous patch. He had an insane first clear speed due to being able to set up his boxes in unique ways to speed it up, but then every clear after the first was just insanely slow, not exactly something you want in the previous farming meta. Now, on the current patch though, this is way less punishing. Since camps are slower to respawn and Shaco is one of the most annoying champions to deal with gank-wise, it's obvious why his power levels have risen. Box placement, stealth, clone control, and a number of other just weird things about Shaco make him really hard for people to pick up and play. But one-tricks have ridiculous win rates on him since Shaco just punishes uncoordinated play, and in solo queue, well, it's always uncoordinated. To give some context, the top 50 best Shaco players in the world right now have the 4th highest average win rate on the patch at 59.59%. For runes, the most common setup involves Hail of Blades and building attack damage going for quick burst. Don't get us wrong, AP Shaco is still viable, but is a really weird playstyle and something we can't in good conscience recommend to players right now, but if enough people are interested, a Shaco guide can definitely happen. Shaco has a wide variety of build paths and item variations, but the one we recommend as it's the most common and consistent is going Duskblade, Berserker's Graves into Essence Reaver as your core. From there, you have a plethora of items you can go on based on what's best in the current game that you're in, but you really can't go wrong with building Lord Dominix and Infinity Edge in nearly every single game. And last but not least, the face of jungle is back, Lee Sin. Let's be honest, everyone loves playing Lee Sin, but very few people are actually good at playing Lee Sin. Having a clear on the slower side, but with amazing ganks and skirmishing to compensate, means he fits well into the meta now after the jungle rework. Not to mention that a lot of people forgot that he recently got that buff on his E ability, so in a way he kind of got double buffed. When it comes to fighting, he has almost an infinite number of options available due to insane mobility and good scaling, as well as nice teamfight utility and well-placed kicks. However, I think we all know why he's in the advanced tier, as he's really just hard to play. People tend to mess up execution, which doesn't make it easy to figure out what went wrong. Having lots of options is a good thing in high elo when they all get utilized well, but in low elo, having more options means harder decisions, which on one hand can be good to train you, but on the other hand will take you a long time to actually train. For runes, nearly every pro is going Conqueror with free boots and Cosmic Insight, as this scales well with the Gore Drinker that you'll be rushing and gives flash reduction, which is critical for Lee Sin's engages. For items, your core will be Gore Drinker followed by Sterak's and Black Cleaver. Keep in mind, Gore Drinker just got a buff this patch too, which makes this build even more powerful than before. Typically, after your core build, you'll then want to opt into more tank-centered items that will help you soak damage in teamfights. Alright, and that brings us to the end of our jungle tier list on patch 11.10. Remember, if you want to improve fast and get that rank you've always wanted, then check out skillcap.com, link in the description below. Otherwise, you know the deal, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to keep up to date with the meta and get more premium guides with one goal in mind, helping you become a better player. We here at Skillcapped want to thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.